For some analysis on this and U.S. President Donald Trump's press briefing earlier on following that attack on Venezuela. Let's now bring in SABC News specialist correspondent Sophie Mokoena, and she joins us now via our telephone line. And Sophie, thank you so much for your time this evening. I mean, let's start off here. We were anticipating that press briefing. It finally took place just an hour ago. And of course, U.S. President Donald Trump saying that they have now taken over Venezuela.
Yes, the President of the United States of America indicated earlier on that the U.S. will be running the affairs of Venezuela, but pointed out that they will be doing it with some Venezuelans. We don't know who those people are, but when a question was posed to him whether the person who might be the leader of the transitional government is the receiver or the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize recently, he indicated that she is not strong enough, as people were expecting that she will be the person who will be supported by the U.S. to run the interim government of Venezuela. He indicated that there are other people who are likely going to be considered. He specifically mentioned the leader of the opposition who came second during the elections last year, that is Edmond Gonzalez, who got 43.18%, and said that perhaps is the person who might be considered, but also indicating that the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, spoke to the current vice president of Venezuela, and he gave an indication that the current vice president has tentatively agreed perhaps to hear what the U.S. is saying, and also indicating that she has taken a soft stand, even though she is the vice president who was part of the Maduro's government, but indicating that you will have to be careful with that. But I suspect that there were people already in Venezuela who were working with the U.S. government. I mean, the way this whole operation was conducted with precision, it means that there was also information inside the Venezuelan government and the country itself that was being given to the United States of America to be able to conduct this operation successfully. And therefore, we will get to know maybe tomorrow or later today when those names are made public.
And Sophie, the issue around oil coming to the fore, also there being mentioned by U.S. President Donald Trump, saying that they will allow for companies to enter Venezuela, and of course the issue of oil being at the center of this all.
This statement by President Trump is exactly what many analysts and politicians have been saying, including in and outside Venezuela, that the main issue here is oil. You'd recall that some years ago, Venezuela decided to implement its nationalization of these oil companies with the Venezuelan government, asking for shares, major shares within those oil companies. And that led to many companies that came from America leaving Venezuela. He is saying he's reversing that. He is also revoking the Monroe Doctrine. You'd recall that President James Monroe in 1823, he declared that no country will challenge the might of the United States as it relates to the interest of the country. In other words, confirming and asserting the dominance of the U.S. And he went back to that to say that's exactly what he is doing, asserting the authority and dominance or hegemony of the United States of America in the Latin American countries. He indicated that for too long, the countries within Latin America were doing things that were not of interest to the United States of America, and gone are those days. And therefore, the Monroe Doctrine being applied again by this president as it relates to the U.S. dominance. And the oil companies will be used as asserting that authority and dominance, including economically, in the region. And therefore, we expect to know the companies that will be going back to Venezuela to take over and start the work there and the production. We don't know whether those companies that left Venezuela are the same companies that will be going back, or President Trump as his friend. As you know, he's very transactional, who might be going there to run those operations and making money for Venezuela, he claims, and also for America, but also indicating that they will be prepared to share oil with other countries as well. I think he's taking into consideration that the second largest economy, that is China, was having a relationship as it relates to oil with Venezuela. You also have Russia supporting Venezuela, and therefore he will make sure that he does play safe in terms of these two superpowers, because when we look at Russia, Russia is a superpower, it's a nuclear power, and therefore you have to be careful in terms of how you move, disrupting the interests of Russia and China. And I think it will be clearer in the coming days what will be the response of Russia and China as it relates to President Trump's statement that now America is in charge of Venezuela. That's a violation of the United Nations Charter.
And Sophie, there, before I let you go, Trump also sending a stern warning to other countries.
Yes, he did. For example, with Venezuela, he said they are prepared to stage a second large attack should there be resistance. Already threatening Venezuelans. We saw some people taking to the streets and calling for the release of the Venezuelan president, as they did some years ago. And now he also mentioned, our general, that any country that is threatening the interests of the United States of America will be dealt with harshly, and therefore sending a message for those who are currently seen as enemies of the United States of America. And one other country that comes to mind is Iran, and we know that Iran is having a relationship that is sound with Venezuela at this moment, with the new political changes and the military intervention has changed. But you know that even a few days ago, President Trump was raising concerns around Iran. But the other issue that he mentioned during question and answer sessions, the journalist did ask him about the situation in Ukraine, and it was interesting what he said there. Being firm this time around against Russia, but again walking back to indicate that they will still be negotiating. He, particularly the military from both sides, and therefore this can't carry on. So we don't know what's going to happen next.
All right, Sophie, thank you so much there for that update. That's Sophie Mokoena, SABC News specialist correspondent there, just giving us a wrap of that press briefing by U.S. President Donald Trump.